Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So, even though spooky season is coming to an end, I was thinking, what do you get when you mix together Louise Belcher's holiday cards, the American Gothic painting, and some pumpkins? Well, you get this video. So, to start off, I need to figure out how everything's going to look all together. And I'm just going to sketch that on to this board that I have that I will be attaching everything to. And I want to get some of the important elements from each thing onto the final piece. So what I want to definitely keep is the majority of the house, obviously the positioning of the two farmers, some pumpkin heads, and the face that Louise makes in every single one of her holiday cards. The first pumpkin's face that I sketched out was relatively easy, very straightforward. But the second one, I wanted to give her Louise's look, and for some reason that was kind of hard to sketch out. It looks very simple when you're looking at it, but there's something about it. I think it's the smile not really reaching the eyes and that disconnected kind of look. That's what I wanted to capture. Eventually I got it. For a second, she was kind of looking like salad fingers, and that's not what I wanted to go for. So I slowed down and I redid the eyes, and it turned out great. As soon as I added the pupils, that's what did it. It really gave it that something's wrong here kind of look that I was definitely going for. Looking at it, I was thinking it still needed something, so I was like, maybe it needs a nose. For some reason, I always forget a nose on a jack-o'-lantern. I don't know why, but it needed a nose. At first I did a tiny nose that wasn't really working. It really needed something to fill in the space, so the long nose that I give them both really fills in that space and works out great. And before we get started, I remembered that the wife had a pattern on her dress, and I was thinking, let me put some knives as the pattern instead of polka dots. I think it looks pretty good. We'll see how that goes. But we have our sketch, and let's get started. So to start off, I wrapped some clay around some aluminum foil and making sure that the back of it is flat because that's what's going to get attached to the board. So it doesn't need to be completely rounded out. I laid down some sections of clay to mark out for myself how the pumpkin's gonna look, and then I went over with my needle tool and some clay shapers to further define the sections that I made for myself. And for this pumpkin, I wanted it to be one of those lumpy pumpkins, so all I'm doing is just rolling out some little blobs of clay and just attaching that on. Now I am figuring out the positioning of the face. Once it's to my liking, I start pressing into that with my ball tool. And what I'm doing with my tool, as I'm pressing in, I am scooping forward the clay so I can create like an empty cavity so it looks like it's been carved. And I do the same method for both eyes, the nose, and the mouth for both pumpkins. For the second one, I do the same thing as far as getting the general shape. This one, I wanted it to be more oblong, and for the texturing, I just go over it with my ball tool. The eyes came out great, and I really love how the nose came out on this one. Now for the stem, I just stretch out a noodle of clay that I blend into the head, and then I'll give it some pumpkin stem texturing. Okay, so the faces are done and they are going to go in for their first bake. Okay, so on to the bodies of the pumpkin farmers. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the pumpkinhead farmers farm pumpkins. So on to the first farmer. All I do is make a toast-like shape for the torso, and I started going in with a thin sheet of clay for the shirt, but then remembered I probably should make a neck first. So I take that off and I make a neck. After blending that in, I texture it to have the similar texturing of the stem. I really like this detail in here that I give for the pumpkins. I like the idea of them not having fleshy human bodies, but that they are just a long stem in the shape of a human body. I like that added detail to it. So after I get the shirt down, I just place a strip of clay for the collar and blend that in. And then I just place a long thin sheet of clay for the overalls. So I actually like that there is an indentation where the shirt ends and the overalls begin. It makes it a lot easier when I'm actually putting in the details for the overalls, and it gives it a nice bulky look that I don't really have to add on to create. Now I'm just making the middle seam of the farmer's overalls, the one that mirrors the pitchfork and the window on the house. All I do is just roll out some thin noodles of clay and just position it so that it would look like a pitchfork. And before I blend that in, I just put a thin strip of clay across that for the seam on the top of the overalls. Now I'm adding some noodles of clay for the folds. And I'll just carry on making some more folds and wrinkles for the shirt and overalls. So I thought the top of the overalls looked kind of stiff, so I cut a slit with my X-Acto knife and pushed it out until it had a natural looking fold that real overalls would have. Now I'm just adding some buttons to the collar and the shirt and putting a seam right down the middle. I'm also adding some rib texture to the shirt to give it some more detail. For the jacket, all I do is just roll out a thin sheet of clay that I cut in half so I can lay over the torso. And then I just cut out the shape for the collar and lay that on top, blending that in so that it looks kind of natural. Now I'm adding some more wrinkles to the jacket. After placing the arm, I make a little hand and size that up to make sure it's not too big. And then I just cut some fingers and round that out until they're the right size and shape. I also add a bit of wire to the back of the hand so that it sticks into the arm so I can move it around to get the right positioning. For the pitchfork handle, I just wrap some wire with some clay and roll it out. For the top part of the pitchfork, I just wrap some wire around each other and bend it into that pitchfork shape. And then I just wrap the handle around that. I'll go ahead and bake it so that it'll be easier to place into the farmer's hand. Now I'm texturing the farmer's hand with the same texturing that I gave the neck with my needle tool. After the pitchfork is baked, I just place it into the farmer's hand. Then I just roll out a thin sheet of clay to make the end of the sleeve for the farmer and blend that in. I thought that this farmer would also look good with the stem, so I went ahead and gave it to him. Onto the other farmer, I just put a tube of clay on her chest to bulk out her chest. And after texturing her neck, I put on some sheets of clay around her neck and fold it down to make her collar. I also add a ball of clay for her locket. Her dress was pretty easy to do. After just rolling out a sheet of clay and just cutting out a neckline, I just placed it over her body and just bulk out some areas and she was done. I lied. Before calling her finished, first I have to add some more folds and wrinkles. Then she also has a lace trim on her dress. So what I do is I just roll out a thin noodle of clay and then make some indentations along it to form the lace. And for the detail in the lace, I just use my smallest ball tool to poke some dots along the trim. Now she's done. And I think it came out pretty good. You guys let me know what you think. And this concludes part 1 of this video. I'm sorry to have to break it up into 2 parts. There was just a lot that went into this and it made sense to split it up. But don't worry, the second part is coming out tomorrow, so you can get closure tomorrow. But I'll leave you with what we did so far, and they look pretty good, don't they? I can't wait for you all to see how it looks when it's finally done. You can come back tomorrow and you can see the final results. But until then, I'll see you soon. Bye!